it's Jessica again, and I thought that I would finally do a paranormal story time. I have quite a bit of these because not only is the house I'm living in or the apartment I'm living in right now, I believe has some definite activity, especially in this room I'm filming in right now. I wouldn't be surprised if you would see orbs or something in the background or anything of that nature. Even though it doesn't tend to happen around this time, it's daylight now, but usually I find that the times that it really comes around is anywhere between like right at like 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And that seems to always be the like really like high activity time. Now, I know quite a bit about the paranormal and spirits, ghosts, demonology, and all of that type of stuff because, well, for one, I've always had interest in it. Two, I just kind of was born not quite sure how to really classify what I am, but I'm definitely empathic and very sensitive. I don't see things as much. I might see things like kind of like my mind's eye, if that makes sense. I sense things. I feel things very much. I feel things like I feel I'll get into some things that I've experienced, but and then my family, because we've all have been very receptive to having weird things happen to us, and also all of us being somewhat like having some type of psychic type of things. Like my mom, she's more inclined to hear and see things, and she also feels things too. So I mean, she's pretty much all around. Like she's really good at sensing things. And my dad, he straight up can be a medium, even though he doesn't like it. For a little while, we've kind of explored this. So way back, I live in Maine, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area, but I lived, well, I still live in South Portland, but I lived in South Portland at this time. That I'm going to talk about this place that we lived at, and it's off Broadway, and I'll just leave it to that. And I mean, Broadway's a long street, so that could be anywhere. But is in South Portland, which is the more suburban area from Portland, the city that's here in Maine. So while we were living at this house, sorry, I might get distracted from time to time and just kind of look away because I'm in front of my window filming, but I'll try to keep that as a minimum as much as possible if I can try to not get distracted. But anyway, so as I was saying, at this house we were living at, we had a lot of activity. It got so bad that I couldn't even have certain friends that would even want to stay over. They wouldn't go in certain rooms. I had an experience where an experience where I had a friend come over and had such a bad experience she would never come back. Um, Many people that we would purposely bring in and say, if you're a skeptic, please come in and stay at our house and, go through these certain rooms that seem to be like more sensitive. Like we had some weird carpeting in that house, and there's some weird background to that house too, which I haven't quite been able to verify if it's true or not. But like through some of the stuff on the Ouija board, we found out some really creepy things that had happened in regards to that house, as far as a woman that had lived there committed suicide. And there was a woman that from there did walk right out on 295, which is a major highway that's just right off where we lived, and right through the woods you get right there. And she had gotten hit, and she committed suicide. She just walked right out in front of a car. Now I'm not sure if she was linked to that house or not, because I haven't been able to really research that any further, but that was one of the things that was brought up when we were doing Ouija sessions. So I have a lot of stories to get into, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get into just the general right now, and then I will get into like a couple stories. I'll tell you a few. For like the really creepy experiences that happened. Now, for myself, I had a couple of creepy experiences, but mainly it seemed like it really was targeted more towards my mother and sometimes towards my brother. growing up in this house, see, I wasn't like young. I was about my teens when we moved there, and I loved it. It was a nice big house. We had a big family. I have a brother, I have a sister, my mom and dad, and we always had people staying with us and living with us. We just always had an open door policy. People were just always coming and staying, and it'd be amazing the stories we would hear from people that stayed just a one night there. And it was funny that this is the house I grew up in, and I just was used to it. We kind of just live with it, even though it would get really bad in some instances. But anyway, we got to a point where we did actually start doing some paranormal investigations, and we started before there was tabs, before there was all these other like shows and stuff. We actually were doing it on public access here, and this is like before the YouTube whole thing and all that. I mean, this is like back like with AOL and all that. I mean, this is quite a while back. So I mean, like, this is early, like late 90s to early 2000s, this time I'm talking about. And I mean, I think they were just coming out with the digital video cameras and all that type of cool stuff. And we were doing paranormal investigations, and we even had like all these white coats. I wish I could find mine. We had these white coats that we wore, and it said New England Hauntings Investigator on it, and we had like our names embroidered in it because we'd had a certain team that would just always go out with us. And we had a good mix of people, like people who were atheists, people who were really strong, like Christian background, people who, you know, kind of were more towards like not like being more Gnostic. I mean, there's so many different backgrounds of beliefs, religion, and all that stuff going into this. So we would although agree that we would always do a St. Michael prayer before we would go in and leaving, and we would make sure to do things like smudging and work with frankincense and myrrh to cleanse ourselves. And everybody pretty much was really good, even regardless of their beliefs, that they would follow those lines, because my mom kind of ran things and they trusted her. Like, if they were scared somewhere, they would stay right with her. Like, there's a place called Devil's Footprint that's way up north, about, I'm not sure, like about 2-3 hours out. You look it up, it's really interesting story. But what the gist of it is that there's a small church there that's no longer being used or anything. It's just kind of there, and then a huge cemetery behind there, and there's a rock, and on the rock is a footprint which looks like, you know, like a hoof, like the devil's footprint. And what was the legend was that there was a man that was doing some type of construction or something, and there's this big boulder. That's actually more of a accurate description. It's a boulder. It was a huge boulder in his way, and he said something along the lines like, I would sell my soul, or, you know, I'd give anything or whatever it was to have this boulder move. Well, legend has it that he disappeared, and then there was this footprint on the boulder, and I'm not sure if it moved or it didn't move or what was that part of the story. I would have to kind of look back into it. I wish I kind of had thought to maybe ask my mom and clarify that first, but that's kind of like the gist. Look it up, it's really interesting. Look up Devil's Footprint in Maine, and you can look up the legend yourself. But anyway, we used to go up there, and the craziest things would happen. Now, this didn't happen when I was there one night, but I was told stories from the other investigators when, because I couldn't go every time. I mean, there were so many investigations that we would do, different crews, different people. I mean, I was working, I was in school, I had a lot of things going on, so this is kind of like a hobby. You know, we weren't making any money at it, it was just for fun. And, you know, I will, if I can find them, I'm going to try to look to see if I can find, there is a website, it's on, actually on Facebook. Actually, they have New England Hauntings. I believe it's under New England Hauntings Paranormal Investigations, I believe is the name of it. If not, I'll link it below, and check it out. It's great. There's a lot of really good pictures and a lot of great documented evidence of things that we had gotten. And this is not, like, I swear to you, it is all authentic, nothing has been altered or mess with. This is before we even had that type of technology to mess with it. So it's completely authentic stuff, and it was insane. Like, alright, so at the Devil's Footprint, this was one night I wasn't there. There was a team that had gone out, and supposedly what happened was that a woman was thrown up into the air and spun and thrown back down, and it was very violent. And what my mom said, through her just being there and feeling what's going on, she said that there is a demon there, and there is some children that are stuck there and they needed to cross over. She was really big on the trying to cross people over. It's kind of like, makes me think of like Ghost Whisperer kind of thing. But she would do this for real. Like, she would be able to cross or try to at least let people know. Like, she saw one time a man, obviously a manis just a manifestation, I can't even talk, manifestation of a person, not fully, but like just kind of like a, like whatever she would describe it as. She would see sometimes full figures, she would see ghost figures sometimes, which are very bad. If you don't know about them, awful. um, and She saw this one man one time walking up and down the road, and he seemed confused, and she had to go talk to him and tell him that he had died in a car accident and he needed to cross over. Well, she went to this place to try to cross over the children, but the demon that's there is making it very difficult, and I don't think she was ever successful in being able to get the children to cross over at this point, even though she still does some things from time to time here, but it drains her so much to do it. So I know this sounds crazy. You can believe whatever you want. You're welcome to. We brought every single skeptic. I would make sure I brought every single friend I had that was a skeptic, and purposely just go, you know what? Let's go and just see what happens. And every single time, 100%, there was not one time somebody would come back and would not believe. Now, they still would be somewhat skeptical of like everything, or they would still be trying to figure things out in their mind, but they still had to recognize that what they had seen, witnessed, and what was picked up was real. That there was just really no other explanation. There was times where I will try to insert some pictures, but there was a time that we had a big avalanche, and we also had a big van that was like a news van that we filled with equipment and stuff. And this is like so old, like it was all like desktop equipment and stuff. Like, it was really ancient stuff that we would have in there. And we would have like footsteps walking across our roof as we would get permission to go into cemeteries and such, because you know people would be vandals and stuff. But we would get permission from the police department and everything to let them know, like, okay, we're doing an investigation, we're respectful, we would never do anything. We'd have footsteps walking across. We got pictures where there was a huge like orb the size of the car right on top of the car. There was this one time, there is this road that if you head up to Wyndham, again, if you know like the area or look up, you know, information about the area, Wyndham, there's this house that you cross every single time, and it's off River Road if you're heading up to Wyndham from Westbrook. And it's always got its lights on, and there's actually a security guard because they don't allow anybody to go in there because it's so haunted. And there's children, supposedly, not children, but you know, like young adults, like teenagers or whatever, that supposedly went there and they fell down the stairs, and one of them got severely hurt, broke their neck, something like that. Bad happened, so they don't allow anybody to go in there. We were never able to get permission to go in there either. But you drive by there, you would see the rocking chair going back and forth in there, because it looked like they just got up and ran. Like, there wasn't like full stuff in there, but you could see there would be a couch in there, you could see a chair, you could see a few like pieces of furniture that would be in there. Or what we would see very often was like a little girl type of like shadow type white thing. I'm trying to think of how to describe it. Like, it would be only like the body of it be white, and then it would kind of like gradually go up into a face, but you could tell it was like a little girl, but it would be blank and you couldn't really see a face, but you could tell it looked like a young girl, or like maybe a woman, but it seemed like a young girl just sitting on the stairs, kind of like with her hands on her knees, kind of down, and you would see her just sitting there. And there was one time in the middle of winter, this is the craziest thing, and my parents believed that possibly it was an angel or somebody looking out for them and telling them this was not the time to come and do an investigation, because they would go around the perimeter the best that they could, because there was a graveyard right next door to it that they had their family cemetery to, but it was a very haunted place. So since we weren't allowed to go into the house or onto the property, we'd go like on the street and do EVPs, EMFs, and take photos and videotape and do as much as we could. And this one instant, I wasn't there, but my parents, I'll tell you guys for them what they told me. It was my mom and dad only. And this man in the middle of winter, and if you know anything about Maine winters, they're brutal. Like, it's winter. And he comes up in a Jeep, not covered at all. And he was wearing like what they would describe as like Hawaiian shorts and a t-shirt. And he jumped out of the car just like a full human being person, not a manifestation of something, not ghostly, just a full person. And he came up to them and he was telling them, hey, maybe you guys shouldn't be here right now. And kind of was like warding them to be like, should kind of like move along, this is not for you to be here. And they didn't think really much of it, but they were like, okay, we'll move along, this is obviously, he had no authority or anything, but it was enough that it kind of creeped him out that they were like, okay, maybe he had some association with the house or something, and maybe that's why. But as they were leaving, they were thinking, this guy was in shorts and a t-shirt, and his Jeep just disappeared off. And they couldn't find him when they went further down the road where he supposedly had driven off to. He just like appeared out of nowhere and then just whoosh, out of nowhere. And it was just insane. And again, a devil's footprint. I have a friend, maybe I could bring him on one time here. It's funny, I still make fun of him about this, but there was this one time that I think he had a full experience with a shadow person. And from what my understanding is about shadow people is that they usually like to attack you when you're vulnerable, usually when you're laying down sleeping or like in a weakened state, and they have the power of like about a 9-year-old child or so, but that's still enough that it could hurt you when you're in a weakened state or incapacitated, but you're sleeping or something like that. Well, in this instance, my friend, I'm sure it's not a big deal, I'll just say his name, Jared, and he was staying really close to my mom. She had laid out like a blanket and was sitting in the middle of the cemetery, sitting there with her EVP recorder and just talking and trying to see if she could get the children to come toward her and get the demon to go away. And I know I might use some of these terms loosely, and you can believe what you believe, that's fine, but this is just how I'm going to just kind of convey this to you, is what I believe it is. So take it as you will, that's totally fine. Again, so going back into the story, this was horrifying. I didn't see it. I was there, but I didn't see it. I just saw his reaction after, and I could not believe it. I'd never seen a man jump up over a fence, and it was like he's a big guy too. It was like 300 pounds, big 6 foot friggin' 3 maybe guy. He's huge, big guy. To jump a friggin' fence was amazing. I never seen anything like it. And he told us what had happened is that he was standing further away from my mom. Usually stays right there next to my mom because it's usually always very safe. She hardly ever gets attacked. Like, we'd get scratches on us a lot. We would get hit. We'd get pushed. There was that woman that one time that got thrown up in the air and spun and thrown back down, and she never came back ever again after that. She was horrified. And I had never experienced anything to that extreme. Like, I've dealt with some paranormal stuff, but that was really, really violent poltergeisty type of behavior that I've never experienced myself or seen firsthand anything that bad. But what happened to my friend Jared was that he said he was standing still, and then all of a sudden he felt like this feeling of somebody gripping his spine. It was all cold and it hurt really badly in his back, and he was like trying to like get his breath, and then he turns around and all he sees is blackness, like blocking everything, because even though it's dark out, we're in a cemetery, you can still kind of adjust your eyes and see, but all he saw was blackness, and it scared the shit out of him that he just bolted. And it was kind of funny because as he bolted, he actually was trying to grab his wife on the way out and run out and say, fuck this shit, I'm getting the hell out of here. But instead he wound up knocking her over and jumping the fence completely and would not come back in. And it was the most hilarious thing to see a big kid like that. We'd always make fun and say, never seen a fat kid go so high up over a fence before. I mean, that was some crazy stuff. And then My God, so many experiences. There was one time I was out with a couple of my girlfriends that decided, hey, you guys should come on a ghost hunt. This will be fun. Both of them are, well, one of them, she really kind of believes in it. And, we used to do like tarot cards together and we really got into astrology and stuff together. So she really believed that there was other stuff out there. My other friend's a lot more of a skeptic. She's come around a lot more now because now she's starting to have things kind of happen she's more aware of now. But so I was holding a video camera and they're walking ahead of me with flashlights and I'm just looking into my viewfinder. It was one of the ones you just like flip over, and I mean it's like an old school camera, real old school, like I'm holding it, and it was pretty big. And I'm just looking at the viewfinder, not seeing very much, and I'm just following them further into the woods on the outskirts of this cemetery. And as I'm following them, all of a sudden they scream, freak out, and they run behind, like through right past me. And here I am holding my camera, going, "What the fuck?" And of course I don't want to stay here because whatever the hell they saw or experienced, I'm not going to sit around and wait to see it too, or have it come after me. So I'm bolting back too, and you can just see the camera going boo 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 the whole time as I'm running, just horrified. And apparently what it was they saw, and I heard only one time somebody describe what this thing was, but we would see them very often and a lot in cemeteries. And if anybody knows about this, please let me leave a comment and tell me if you know what this is. One time, this woman I talked to that was a Mormon, she said she knew what it was, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it is. But it's basically like this demonic type of human spirit type thing that's doomed to the earth or something, or earthbound, and it can be like human for a little while, where it can walk like a human and then it like turns into like an animal, or it crawls on all four. Oh, it's so creepy. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm like looking around because it's creeping me out so bad. My mom used to see those things crawling across her floor sometimes in our old house. It just, that creepiness, like you, ugh. And they would like be shadow people because they would be like all black. And God, I just keep on feeling like something's behind me. This is really, I hate, I kind of been putting this off because this stuff creeps me out, even though I've experienced so many things, but I still get creeped out. Like, I don't know, when I was younger, I had a lot of experiences. I'll get into some of that stuff more, maybe another video. I don't want this to be too long, but I just wanted to kind of get into some paranormal experiences that we experienced while we did ghost hunting. So I'll just kind of leave it to that, and then we'll get into some things that happened in the house. So let me think about some more ghost hunting stories we had. That one with the angel was really weird. There was one time, but my parents weren't ghost hunting, but that they were driving down this long strip that's all marsh, and it's out in Scarborough, heading into like Saco area. Now this place, if you're familiar with it, it's a long marsh, and there's this one restaurant, and John's, that's right there, and then there's like nothing else. And it's so weird because it's like 50 miles per hour. Everybody flies down this, and it's a couple miles long. You can fly for a while. And none of the cops will ever sit anywhere near this marsh because it's just all wide marsh, just way out, and you see nothing. And that's why it was so really weird. This happened. My parents were coming back from Old Orchard Beach, which is Old Orchard, then Saco, and then you come into like Scarborough, then heading into like South Portland, and it's all down Route 1. It's quite a long drive, but that's probably the quickest way to get there, besides taking like the highway or something. And my parents were driving, they were in a convertible, and out of nowhere, there was a car in front of them that smacked right into something, and they saw blood just like everywhere from the front of it, and then whatever it was dart off. And nothing, and it's all clear marsh, and they saw nothing. They saw nothing go out, and they saw nothing go back. And the girl apparently had walked out of the car freaking out. She had blood on her from the accident, and the car had some blood and hair and stuff on it. And my parents, of course, stopped, pull over to make sure that everything's okay, but they were just freaked out by this whole incident. Like, what the hell was this thing? And it kind of made them think of like the Mothman type thing, or that maybe that guy thing where it can run like a man and then like go and be like an animal and crawl. And oh, it was just so creepy, but it just came out of nowhere, and these poor people like hit it. And I don't know what happened, if this guy got really severely hurt or if he lived or what happened, but the cops made them leave, and we found nothing in the paper about it the next day. It was all hush hush. It's like the cops won't like to talk about that area. There's some rumors about See, in that area in Scarborough, there's a lot of like Indian type stuff, and a lot of, there was this story of this legend of, they called the Hanging Judge, and I guess he killed a bunch of Indians, and he was just an awful, awful man, and somehow he has some relation to that marsh because I think they buried a lot of Indians there. So there's a lot of really creepy things. Oh my God, I'm going to be remembering all this if I ever go back down that way again. But I do often think about it when I walk down, when I not walk, I walk, but when I drive down that way, it's pretty creepy. So anyway, I think that that's enough stories for right now on the paranormal investigations. This is getting pretty long, and I kind of like to just keep it at this right now. But you know what? Please stay tuned and subscribe, because I'd love for you to hear some of my other videos and other stories that I have of things that had happened to us in our house. And I was going to get into some of that today, but I'm too much time. It's just it would take so long. So I'm going to break it up in some videos and kind of like categorize some of them, so that I'll tell some about what happened in the house from like my mom's point of view, things that happened to her, my dad, my brother, what happened to me, and just kind of go on from there, and then talk about some things that happened earlier on. And I have a lot of stories. So if you love paranormal story times, I love them. I love watching them, and I still get creeped out by them because I completely believe in them. So if you are interested, please subscribe, so you can be able to catch the other videos that I'm going to do. And thank you for stopping back by to check out my paranormal story time, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment below to let me know about your experiences. I love hearing about other people's stories. Heard a clicking sound. I had a banging, and I had some weird experience happen last night to me too. That's kind of what prompted me to kind of do this anyway, which I'll get into that in my next video as well. So there's quite a bit to come. So if you like the paranormal like me and you like these videos, like I said a million times already, I'm sorry I keep repeating myself. But please subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you, and see you next time.